share my screen, make sure I share audio. If you could give me a thumbs up if you see it. Beautiful. Jen, you're the only face I see right now, so I'm going to look at you if anything's going horribly wrong. Awesome. So we welcome you to Forming Connections, Community, and Authentic Relationships with Students. This is Pop-Up PD presented to you by the Connecticut State Department of Education, the Turnaround Office. And today's meeting is being recorded, and the professional development and tools and a playlist are also posted to the Turnaround Office website, which I'm sure we will put in the chat box in a little bit. So before we begin, I am going to request that everybody disables their camera to save on bandwidth and hope that technology runs smoothly. After we're done with the presentation, I will ask you to turn on your cameras, or if at any point you do want to chime in, feel free to turn your camera on or raise your hand, and we can engage you in that way. So Pop-Up PD is designed to be quick, timely, and responsive to your needs. So it's important to share with our office what topics you'd like to see in the future so we can continue to support you. Our hope is to have another opportunity to join together as a community of learners, to face these new challenges of COVID and more, lean on one another, and ultimately work towards achieving equity and excellence for all students. So the structure of this PD is something that we're hoping you can turnkey and implement with your own staff. We know there's a wealth of knowledge within your own school and district, so having these short bite-sized PDs led by a variety of staff might be something that you want to adopt and do with your own schools. So I'm Amanda Pickett. I'm an associate education consultant with the State Department of Ed. I am not in the Turnaround Office. However, I think that's my second home. I am with the Office of Student Supports, and my work centers around school climate, bullying prevention, and restorative practices. I come to the State Department of Ed with a lot of experience supporting school districts with their integration of behavioral health in their school service delivery models. So a lot of my kind of support, again, focuses around multi-tiered systems, PBIS, restorative practices, community collaboration, and classroom management. I am a certified school social worker. I'm an endorsed PBIS trainer, a licensed restorative practices trainer, and an affiliate of Courageous Conversations About Race. Personally, I'm a wife and a mom of two little ones, a kindergartner and a preschooler. And I think the best part of today's PD is that I am joined by two amazing Connecticut educators for this session. I'm going to introduce them more fully before their section, but please welcome Mr. Muzzy and Ms. Wissinger with us, who are going to share with you all their experience of an elementary and a high school classroom. So to maximize the opportunities for learning, we ask that you join us in our community agreements. This PD will begin and end on time. We ask that everyone set aside as many pressing demands that might be present and stay engaged with us for 30 minutes. The learning is most valuable when we're all able to contribute and share, so please feel free to use the chat box and to contribute your learnings and your reflections along the way. We agree to be solution-oriented for our students and assume good intentions from our colleagues. So here are our learning targets for today. By the end of this learning time, we will all be more familiar with the importance of community and relationships within our classrooms, including teacher to student and student to student. We're going to discuss some strategies that you might use and become familiar with available resources. Our hope is that we learn from one another and use this learning in our work each day. So let's get into the content here. Why do relationships matter? And what are relationships? We hear these words all the time, and I'm sure that many of us assume that we have them, but let's ensure that we're on the same page. I'm going to pause here for a moment. In the chat box, I want you to respond to this question. How do relationships with your students impact your classroom? And I'm going to see if I can actually see the chat box. All right, how do relationships impact your classroom? I'm really horrible at wait time, especially in a virtual space. Thank you, Jill. They encourage student participation. Awesome, so it helps with academic instruction. It helps engage our learners. Yes, so it helps build that foundation. It helps kids get engaged. It's the foundation of what you do. Thank you so much. All right. So this is why. Last week, we did a session with the administrators about collegial relationships. So it's a whole school effort. So again, tying into why it matters, especially with our students. So research suggests that students with a high sense of belonging are also happier, healthier, and more engaged learners. Not only is connectedness linked to better academic outcomes, but students who feel connected to school are less likely to skip school, abuse substances, have emotional distress, or be involved in fighting or bullying behavior. So something that's come up since COVID is how do we engage in this virtual space? Research from the children's media field suggests that technology can indeed facilitate meaningful connection. There's this new concept called joint media engagement, which refers to using technology and media as co-engagement or co-viewing tool between adults and children. Multiple studies show that a healthier way for children to interact with technology, especially screen media, is if an adult is physically or virtually present and participating in usage with the child. So that whole kind of piece of we're in the learning with them. So the positive benefits increase when the technology delivers high quality educational content. So this means that educators can design or adapt educational activities, virtual lessons, and online social emotional learning programs to foster connectedness online, which we're going to hear a little bit more about that from our two co-presenters. I think it's also to note that relationship building can be part of your academic instruction. So I think so many times, especially in the secondary world, there's not enough time for that. There's so much in the curriculum. Where does this fit? I think of group work, giving feedback, partner work, strategies that you use. As long as you're intentional about it, you explicitly teach it, it's a part of your routines, and you support it using feedback, that's really building the foundations of relationship building. So it's critical to think about how we're building relationships with our students and how we're encouraging them to build relationships with each other. So this is a quote that was carried from the first session, and I want to kind of put it in this space too. It's from Ronald S. Barth, the founding director of the Principal Center at Harvard University and a former school administrator, who wrote, "If relationships between administrators and teachers are trusting, generous, helpful, and cooperative, then the relationships between teachers and students, between students and students, and between teachers and parents are likely to be trusting, generous, helpful, and cooperative." So think about how we're modeling this and supporting our students with it. So we're going to watch the first minute of this clip, and I'm going to really hope that it works. This clip is part of the playlist, so please go back and finish watching it. I'll also share the clip direct link in the chat box. In the chat, feel free to share any reactions or thoughts that you have. So I'm going to click play, and I'm going to look at the cameras to make sure that you're actually hearing the sound.
You had so much.
Yep.
Offer yesterday. You okay?
I'm tired.
So what's going on?
Strong relationships are central to the learning process. What the science of learning and development tells us is that we need to create learning environments which allow for strong long-term relationships for children to become attached to school and to the adults and other children in it.
When children have experiences of closeness and consistency and trust, oxytocin is released. Oxytocin has many, many positive effects on the development of the brain. So when we think about a relationship, we're not just talking about being nice to a child. We're talking about a child having an experience of attunement and trust strong enough to release the hormone oxytocin.
Good morning, Ariella. How you doing today?
The purpose.
All right. So again, feel free to share any thoughts or reactions in the chat. I think the important thing that I heard, or something that I'm really left reflecting on, is building those strong long-term relationships. So I think this can be challenging in schools. Some schools are structurally set up where you only have kids for 2 or 3 years. So long-term is really short. Or there are some school climates where teachers own relationships with their students, but there isn't this school-wide kind of community feel. So I'm interested to hear from any of you around ways that your school may be building more long-term relationships with staff and students. Please feel free to share in the chat, or I'm going to send my contact information at the end of this presentation, and feel free to share with me ways that you're building long-term relationships, especially in those school environments. So second only to family, school is the most important stabilizing force in the lives of young people. It's this natural setting to foster those positive relationships among students, adults, and peers. And we think about that it's more than just a classroom teacher. This is your whole school environment, your certified staff, your classified staff, your students, your volunteers, your community, and family. For this series, we're looking at this definition, the positive connections between students, adults, and peers in the school setting that fosters positive social interaction and establishments of a nurturing environment of trust and support. This is essential to build a positive school climate and promote academic success. So here you see on the left, the Castle graphic of social emotional learning, which depicts the 5 core competencies of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. The competencies include skills that are significantly correlated to success in school, work, and life. I want to be clear that relationship skills are one piece of SEL, but a foundational one. It's really challenging to teach, support, and provide feedback on social emotional learning skills if there isn't a foundation of relationships. So I'm going to stop talking in a minute and share this space with the 2 educators that are going to share some tools from their toolboxes. I do want to share some overarching themes around relationship building that can support what you're already doing in your classroom in person or virtually. So before handing this off, I want to briefly review these critical features. The first one is to be intentional. This means being authentic and familiar. I'm going to also add the term being vulnerable here. Maintaining the teaching style that you used in person to recreate that sense of comfortability with your students in the virtual space. This might mean using similar language and phrases that you've used in your classroom, remembering those important routines, possibly sharing brief and engaging personal stories. In one way or another, we've all been impacted by the events of 2020 and 2021, and they present this opportunity for us to connect on an emotional level. So create the space to check in with your students and share enough to let them know that you're interested in building positive and honest relationships, which goes in with that check-in piece, which can help you assess your students' needs week by week, allowing you to adapt your teaching in a way that creates an environment where students are motivated to be productive and speak out. The next is providing feedback and seeking feedback. So seeking feedback from students is a great way to ensure teachers and leaders are responding to their needs. This encourages students to speak up and continue to offer that feedback. They appreciate when they're given choices about making decisions, even in small ways, such as choosing which partner to work with or staying inside or going outside to play a game. They also really agree. They also have, students have also reported that they enjoy when teachers speak with them like adults, like they're part of the decision-making process, and they work together with them. We also want to think about how we are being flexible. To meet the needs of all learners, consider multiple options for communication and student participation. Is there a way that you can provide a pen and paper option for a virtual activity? With so many different virtual tools at your disposal, make sure to take advantage of them. Virtual adaptations are great opportunities to innovate and try something new. See this as a time that we get to be creative and reach our students in a different way and use possible tools like Padlet or Flipgrid. I have a colleague on here from the Turnaround Office who knows many tools, and I'm sure my teacher friends are also going to share some tools with you. But think about the intention of using those tools. So now I'm going to take a break and stop speaking. I'm so happy to pass the mic to 2 amazing educators. They're going to share with you strategies that they use in their high school and elementary classroom. First, we're going to hear from Mrs. Jordan Wissinger, a high school ELA teacher, a Google certified educator, an instructional tech lead, and a Screencastify genius from Hartford Public High School. Then we're going to hear from Mr. Craig Muzzy from Chamberlain Elementary School in New Britain. He's a 5th grade teacher and the lead teacher for the Anna Grace Project. He is leading, developing, and implementing social emotional learning every day in his classroom. So thank you both for joining us, and I'm going to pass it off to Jordan.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Amanda, and everybody for having me here. I greatly appreciate it. I think building relationships is of utmost importance in education. And it's really the foundational work that we're doing, especially at Hartford Public High School, because we know that our students really need those connections in order to truly learn. So when Amanda reached out to me, these are some of the things that I do in my classroom that I bullet pointed on the slide that you see in front of you. But obviously there's so many other things that we couldn't take only 30 minutes to talk about. But I was going to talk about just a few today. So when I start the year, I do the traditional informational form, but I always thought back to my own educational experience and how I never know what those, I didn't know what the teachers did with the index card or what they did with the slip of paper that I wrote my favorite color on. They never really got back to that. So it is really important to me as an educator that I keep that handy. It is a Google form that I refer back to, and it helps me understand the students a little bit better. So for instance, I have a student in one of my classes that I'm currently working in who loves anime, and she reported that on her informational form. But she was struggling with one of the assignments that we had, and I was able to manipulate the assignment so that she was still gaining the same skills, but I was implementing anime as our first source, and then I was giving her what the class was using as a secondary source. It really just kind of prompted her and got her interested, and it alleviated some stress for her so that she felt she could tackle the skills that we were doing in class as long as I used anime first and then brought her into the class text. I also verify right away parents' emails and cell phone numbers. Parent communication is huge. I know I teach 12th graders and a lot of them tell me, I'm an adult, you don't need to call my mom. But having that communication, honestly, they feel more loved and respected when teachers do reach out to their parents or their guardians, because that makes it more of a family setting, right? I'm not only reaching out to your parent for a negative instance or any kind of negative feedback, but I'm also telling them how wonderfully you did on your reading assessment, or that you participated in the chat today for one of my kiddos that isn't necessarily participating at their fullest right now. I also do weekly Wissinger reports. So this is on a Google form and it is linked with Autocrat. So Autocrat is an add-on that I use on the form itself that's linked to Google Sheets. And it automatically emails to parents and students each week their attendance and their work completion. So it keeps everybody on the same page, and it allows the parents and students to reach out to me if they need any further support. The parents also get a bi-weekly check-in. I do this with the students live. I ask for that feedback on not only my teaching, but the content that we're using. I ask them live for feedback, but the parents aren't live with us. So I use a bi-weekly parent check-in form, again, a Google form. As you can see, I'm a Google educator. So I just want to check in from a parent's perspective. How is your child doing academically? How are they feeling socially and emotionally? How the parent might view it might be different than what I see live on the Google Meet. So it's really important to do that bi-weekly check-in so that I can better instruct and love that student with what they need in that instance. So I have not only the student perspective, but then the parent perspective as well. I have requests for support tickets that a student can fill out where they can meet with me one-on-one. They can ask for an email explanation or a tutorial video. This was huge, especially in the beginning of this year, where I didn't have the opportunity to meet my kiddos face-to-face. So they didn't necessarily feel comfortable meeting with me one-on-one on a Google Meet. That intimidated a lot of my students. So by allowing them this option, especially for the tutorial video, which is what most of them chose, they gained the comfort level that I was here to support them and that I was going to help them with whatever they may need. I've noticed through the data in terms of them submitting the support tickets, more of them are asking for the one-on-one Google Meets now, but I always do have that option available to them that they could have just an email explanation or a tutorial video sent to them, which can meet them at their comfort level, but still get them the support that they need. I always have a teacher's desk open. So this is another breakout room. Many students are extremely terrified to ask questions, even when we're in person in front of the whole class. So now them typing it in a chat so that the whole class knows they have a question, a lot of them feel uncomfortable. So to give them the comfort level, I always have a teacher's desk breakout room open where I only allow one student in at a time, which allows me that time to give them that one-on-one support and them to ask any clarifying questions that they may have. A lot of them tend to use that with just the chat option even to ask a quick question, and then we meet back in the main room. But they always have that comfort level of knowing that it's available for them if they need that additional support. I know it sounds silly, the birthday messages, but they're still kiddos, right? They want, just like even we as adults, we want to be acknowledged. So if you even pre-schedule a birthday message, or if you know something big is coming up in one of your kiddos' lives, pre-schedule it on the stream. We all know we're super busy and things come up, But what I do is once a week, I sit down and I go through all of their birthdays in Power School, which is the system we use. And I pre-schedule all of their birthday messages to come out throughout the week. It makes them feel loved and appreciated. And we all want that. Whether you're a student, a teacher, an adult in general, everybody wants that. And then the last thing would be, I noticed, especially with so I teach public speaking, which can be rather daunting or intimidating in a virtual aspect where they haven't been able to meet each other. And through that class, I've learned that prearranged student groups staying the same for marking periods has definitely allowed them to build and collaborate with one another. They've built those relationships where they feel comfortable to take chances and they feel comfortable to make those mistakes even. And then they know that I'm going to be in each individual breakout room with them in a small group format to support them, but it allows them that peer support. And they have grown so close with just having those individualized breakout rooms by maintaining the same group throughout the marking periods. They've really excelled. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to highlight, but honestly, relationships are just the foundation of everything we do, and they are so important. And I really wanted to thank you for allowing me to talk about them because they are of utmost importance in my own teaching.
Thank you so much, Jordan. You just made that seem so doable and like flawless that it's just part of your instruction, which I know when you and I met, you had talked about like, this is just how I do my job. But I have so many personal takeaways and things that I think are doable. Especially, I know we kind of all give teachers right now always the utmost respect, but especially during COVID, your job has morphed and changed overnight. So the way you can make this more effective and efficient, and you gave some great tips for that. So thank you so much. And now I'm going to pass it to an elementary school example. Mr. Muzzy, I'm going to put you on to kind of share your learnings of working with your students.
All right. Hi, everyone. And thank you, Amanda, for having me. Before I start, I do want to just share a little bit about who I am. So, I'm just not some, random fool rambling in front of you. I'm currently a 5th grade teacher at Chamberlain in New Britain. I've been here about it's my 16th year. I've taught grades 1 to 5. I can't imagine teaching anything lower than 4th again. I picture my daughter who's hitting kindergarten next year. I see how tough she is and how little control I have over her. So I've got a ton of respect for lower level teachers or lower grade level teachers. I'm also the lead teacher for the Anna Grace Project, founded by Nelba Marquez Green in memory of her daughter, Anna, who lost her life during the Sandy Hook tragedy. We've done a ton of SEL work and focused on relationships and bonds to motivate students. So when I first started teaching, some early advice I received was don't smile at the kids, it shows weakness. The teacher told me this. She always had solid classroom management, so I took the advice. For my first year of teaching, I was basically, an intimidating robot, but kids listen to me. Only now I see after my first year that kids listen to me because they were intimidated. It was really after I started making those bonds and kind of finding out what they were interested in, basketball, football, music. It really gave them a voice in my classroom. I saw improvements in attendance and behavior. And just a quick flash forward to when I met Nelba for the first time, she told me she wished Adam Lanza had a connection while in school. She wondered if he had one relationship or one person to go to, would the outcome be the same? And this really kind of stuck with me. So I started to view my class as the individuals they were. I recognized we would obviously have some tough days and some kids wouldn't want to work some days, come in tired, but I also recognized there's probably a reason for all of this. And just as I was finding my groove and seeing improvements, COVID hit. So this whole online learning, remote teaching is definitely hard. But last year when we closed and went to e-learning, I had a few kids handing in work. This year currently I'm on my third week in a row of perfect attendance. So I'm just going to share a few tips that I've used to motivate students. Teachers can feel free to change, modify, or not even use, but it's just worked for me. So my first tip is teachers, you cannot motivate students if you're not taking care of yourself. I'll be honest, when I came into this year, I was a little upset because, I was putting my family at risk, putting myself at risk. Once I realized I had control over two choices, to work and make it work and keep myself safe the best way I can, or quit, I switched up my thinking. So as a teacher, we always kind of want to take care of everyone else first, like our students, our admins, our lesson plans. But in reality, you can't take care of anyone else without helping yourself first. So I realized that coming with a positive frame of mind, and just making sure that when I'm outside of school, I'm spending time with my family and doing things that's important. I'm just coming in clear. My second tip is, calling for a little compassion and also a change to the language. Rather than telling students, I want you to do this, I'm trying. It's hard, but I'm trying to say, like, I'd like you to try this. E-learning has helped some kids flourish, but others have kind of lost a little motivation, a little push. They need help finding that motivation. So changing from words like, I expect you to, I'm trying to say, like, I challenge you, or a goal you can achieve, kind of putting the ball in their court and focusing on their own motivation and wants or needs rather than me telling them to. My third tip is I use a lot of rewards. I use breakout rooms for kids to socialize. When we do our morning meeting, the first 5 minutes, I will let them go into breakout rooms and just talk, and I'll join the rooms. Now, I'm a control freak, so originally I had a lot of stress about this, but once we went over the expectations, I saw they really needed it. We use Cool Math. We do Kahoot or quizzes for class games. If I have a certain amount of students on a meet with their cameras on, we do a quick show and tell or a read aloud with the story they may like. There's hundreds of games on Google, or you can play with Google or Zoom. Again, at first I was a little hesitant with the breakout rooms, but it's been really motivating and beneficial to them. I've also used Flipgrid with my kids. They call it the Snapchat for school. It's something I can monitor where they can make videos and they don't have to just type everything out. It's just something neat. I've used Pear Deck, Jamboard, and Padlet. So I really try keeping the lessons as engaging as possible rather than just one slide. And it does take a lot of time. And my last two are to make feedback meaningful and timely, and also to involve parents. Kind of like what Jordan was saying, with the parents, getting them involved is the best thing that I've found I can do. Reaching out to them with positive information, positive things that happen during the day has really made a huge impact on the kids. My best results from the class have come when parents are engaged and know what's going on. So I've gotten much better about reaching out about positive news and just trying to encourage the kids to come to meets and saying, so-and-so showed up and turned their camera on and participated. Really running with that. And then, of course, rather than typing feedback, or I like to chat with them, but I'll send audio messages to them. I can't draw, but I've tried to draw with them, and just gaining feedback lets the students know that I care and that I'm present with them. And that's about it. I mean, relationships are really what has helped me keep going. I mean, during this pandemic and being with some tough kiddos, it's definitely difficult, but making sure that I'm giving up some time to listen to them and really explore what they need has really made a difference.
Thank you so much, Craig and Mr. Mezzi, teacher names here. Really appreciate your feedback as well. And again, just like Jordan, this is just part of your craft. And I know both of you were like, this is just how I teach. But intentional things you do, the change in language, such a great pointer, something I'm going to try to even take back personally as a mom. Gosh, I just had a challenge at lunchtime that I wish I could go back and re-script. So thank you for making that such a reflection piece for myself, and I think for some others who mentioned that in the chat. The other piece, and I see my colleague Judy Carson is on, we have one more session around family engagement and relationship building, and both of you spoke to that piece around involving families. So thank you so much for making that connection as well. I'm going to do a quick wrap up because I see we are at time, and I want to respect that. So I'm going to wrap up quickly, but thank you both again for joining us. To wrap up, I just encourage folks to stop and reflect. What do relationships look like in your class? Who are you connecting with and who aren't you? Which students are struggling with peer relationships? What are you doing to address that? And then find things that work for you. Remember those critical elements of being authentic, consistent, and flexible. And lastly, try something new. We do have the playlist up on the Turnaround Professional Learning tab. So please check this out. There's some great things to read, to watch, a couple podcasts to listen to, and some reflection questions. So I encourage you to check that out and share with your colleagues. And then a couple last things that I want to highlight is our own Chief Academic Officer, Irene Parisi, has a podcast out that goes well with today's content. So please check out the Borrowed Classroom podcast, which showcases the promising practices in learning and teaching in person and remotely. This first episode explores the strategies for teaching concurrent learners with Berlin, Greenwich, Mansfield, Meriden, and Naugatuck Public Schools. There's also a checklist that accompanies that podcast. The second resource is from the Search Institute that provides strategies you may want to include in how you express care, challenge growth, provide support, share power, and expand possibilities. Another quick plug, February 1st is our last session of this series, which is focusing on teacher-family partnerships for student learning with Dr. Judy Carson. So please tune in for the last week of this series. And then my contact information. Again, please feel free to reach out. I love hearing from folks and staying connected. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Jordan and Craig, so much. Your voice is so much more powerful than anything that I could say. So keep up the great work, and thank you all again for attending.